Hello, everyone. Good evening here from the UK. I'll just make sure I press my unmute button. Hello, my name is Ross McGill, Teacher Talker. I work with teachers and schools all around the world, and in this EdTech era, that is increasingly the case. Tonight, I want to give you a fabulous prize, just one person, sadly, or one school, an annual subscription to some fabulous resources to support relationships, education, and student mental health. Just so we're all sure of this technology, I'm using a platform called StreamYard. In the chat box, if you're logged into Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, you can add a comment and I can play this on the screen and show it to our guests who I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. So I can see one or two people have already logged in, which is great, and they're adding comments. I'll get those displayed shortly. So prizes and competitions and some good kind of conversation around pupil mental health and relationships education. So I'll come back to the logistics in a moment. Before I get started, I just want to kind of show people that have signed up to this session and people watching ad hoc live, because we are live streaming. Let's just put my screen up for you here. Here it comes. So we're looking at a great platform called One Decision. This is our timeline for this evening. Whether we stick to that or not, let's wait and see. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about this great resource, and particularly looking at kind of different ways that we can support young people with their mental health and delivering kind of PSHE resources, mental relationships education, and much, much more, particularly for primary. And we'll talk about what the resource can offer later. I'm going to also introduce you to teacher Bryony Dorans and Hayley Sherwood, the founder and director of One Decision. And we'll talk about the fabulous resources and Bryony in particular, how she uses them in her school. On these topics, as we've said, and then people watching live. So again, I can see lots of people saying hello in the chat box. So thank you for that. A little Q&A session. So I just, before we really get started, giving people a chance to log in. Log into your device, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Give me a hello. Tell me where you're watching from, and I'll give your town, city, or whatever it might be, even maybe a little village. I'll give you a kind of global shout out. And there'll be lots of people watching this after, I'm sure. And then this is our key. I'm just going to move my screen in a second, but our key link for this evening is www.onedecision.co.uk. So we'll get started in 10 or 20 seconds or so, and I'll give you a chance to log in. I'll just move my face off the camera so you can see that link clear, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so that is enough for a moment. I think before we go forward with anything else, I'm just going to bring in our guests and just ask them both to introduce themselves. So we'll go first name, alphabetical order. So I'll let you two work that out. And don't forget to unmute yourself, ladies. And thank you for joining me. So who's up first?
So, hi, I'm Bryony Dorans. I'm a year one teacher in a private school in Devon. I've been teaching for 5 years now, and I've been PSH leader of my school for about 2 years now, 2.5 years coming up. And we've been using One Decision since September 2019.
Hi, my name's Hayley Sherwood. I am the founder and co-creator of One Decision. I'm looking forward to telling you a bit more about the resources a bit later on.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Thanks for joining me, and thank you everyone else for watching. Let's just do a few little messages here. So we've got Philip here watching from Ramsbottom near Bury. So thank you, Philip. I'm not too far away from you. And also to Lauren from West Lancashire. So your last call, people watching live. Let's give your town a little shout out. Everyone likes a little bit of glory. Okay, so let me, ladies, I'm going to bump you off the screen for a moment. My apologies. And just put the slides back up. And I'm just going to get people to just get a bit of context and gather a bit of data from you, if that's okay. So ticket page, people watching formally, you've signed up from all over the place. I think the last time I checked was about 20 different countries, which is great. And we'll talk about here a particular UK context. There might be people watching from a kind of British international sector, and Hayley will clarify how the resources might be used in a different context in countries around the world and who she works with. Hello, Samantha from Sheffield. I'll just mention that while you've left a comment in the chat box. Thank you for joining us. And then because we're here in England and we're tuning in from different locations, there is where, if I just move this banner out of the way, bear with me, there we go. You can see where you're watching from. So the bigger the dot, the more people watching. So there you go. Right. So before we get into details about One Decision, on this screen, could you log in? I'm going to put into the chat box and I'll say it out aloud for everyone joining. Could you just give me a bit of feedback? What best describes your role? So in the chat box, the web address that you need is www.polev.com/teacher toolkit. There it is in the chat box. Here it is on the screen. If you put that in a mobile phone device, everybody, or in a web, another tab on your screen, I'll give you a moment just to log in and connect, and let's just see. So we've got a small number of people watching live, and there's people on different channels. So this is the stream here to Facebook in particular. I'll just give you a moment to log in. Let's see if this works. If it doesn't, then I'll just give up. Okay, we've got one person. Great. So let's see another 8 or 9 of you log in and tell me a little bit about your role, and we can use this data to guide our conversations tonight. So I've got 3 or 4 of these before we get down to business. So what best describes your current role on a mobile phone or on a tab on your browser, polev.com/teacher toolkit. I'll give you another couple of moments to give me a bit of feedback. Okay, thank you. It's all coming through now. A couple more if we can. So early careers teachers, some teachers, middle leaders. So at the moment, only 7 results. So obviously the data is a bit skewed. Let me just move to the next slide. Your screen will automatically refresh, by the way, so there's no need to change anything on your side. Tell me where you are watching from live. Let's see. Okay. So I've given a few shout outs to Sheffield, Lancashire, Greater Manchester. Anybody else from a different part of the world? Any people watching outside of England? Let us know. Press that top button. Okay, so we've got more people connected. We've got 1 more vote this time. That's good. Okay, so Yorkshire and the Humber win. Okay, let's do 1 more question. Tell me what you know about One Decision. Have you used it before? Yes, not sure, or no, but I'm really curious and I definitely want to win a free site license from a school and also get all the free resources. Okay. Right, so lots of curious people. We've got 1 or one person that said they do. So be keen to ask people watching live what you think. Hello to Julie from Manchester. Thank you for joining us. Right, so let's take this off the screen. That'll do for now. So I'm going to bring Hayley and Bryony back in. I'll start with you, Hayley. Could you just give us a synopsis of what One Decision is?
Okay, so to sum up One Decision, it started originally as a PSHE program. And actually, originally it started a safeguarding program that was more focused on children's safeguarding as opposed to adults looking for children's safeguarding needs. And then it progressed into a larger PSHE program. We worked with it's not Sarah Stevens, a different Sarah who started. She was the original CEO of Sarah Smart of the PSHE Association. And when she stepped down from her role, she became very involved with us to try and create something very visual for our media generation. And then over the years of development, it became part statutory for health and relationships. So we've gone back and amended the programme to make sure it reaches all of those expectations. And then we're just continuing to build at the moment. So as you can see on the screen now, we now have a nurture group programme, which was used as a bit of a recovery programme through COVID. But it's more as a kind of intervention programme to support those children that really lack in self-esteem. And then more recently, we have added an early years programme. So that's our newest feature.
Great. And can I just ask, how many people are using this in general? And I'm going to come to Brian in a second, just ask her to quickly tell us how she might use it in her school. But how many schools, locations, how many people are using your resources, Hayley?
So we're currently working with nearly 1,000 schools. I think it's 960 odd schools, and across 47 counties. And more recently, we've ventured into Wales, which has been quite nice because PSHE has been.
There's our map.
Yeah, you can see them on the map there. All the Welsh schools have just started to join us in the last couple of months. And PSHE has been statutory there for a long time. So it's been really, really nice to see that they want to see what we're doing across the border. So, and we're also in about 6 or 7 British schools across the world at the moment.
Great. So lots and lots of people. Look at all those blue tags. Fantastic. And you're starting to infiltrate Wales, which is good to know. Bryony, so you're in, did you say East Devon, West Devon?
I'm in South Devon.
South Devon. Got it wrong. I had 4 choices. So give us a quick history. I'll come back to you in a bit more detail, but just give us a quick kind of whistle-stop tour of your use of One Decision.
So before we bought into One Decision, we didn't really have anything concrete in place, and we were finding there was gaps in children's knowledge, lots of things not being covered as effectively as we wanted to be. And One Decision was actually found by our current Year 6 teacher as a recommendation on a Facebook group. And we looked into it and decided as a school that this looks really good for what we want it for our children. So we bought into it September 2019. So at this point, it was only the primary that we had. So early years, we were still kind of doing our own thing. And then once the early years was established, we thought, great, why not have it from our nursery children up to our Year 6 children to make sure it's consistent, to make sure we're all on the same page. Because I think that's one of the most important things that we found is that we all need to be doing the same thing consistently to make sure it's really effective, and it's exactly what One Decision does.
It's interesting you started just before the pandemic, so I suspect it was a super popular resource that you used throughout the pandemic.
Yes. Because this is now we're in our 3rd year of using it. Hopefully we're going to now do a whole cycle of being in school using One Decision for the whole year. We were able to take elements of the slides that One Decision provided as part of our online learning, but we weren't always able to share the videos. So they still had something PSHE based, and we still tried to sort of plug in those gaps. But once we came back to school, for me, it was like, right, what have they missed in Year 1? What have they missed in Year 2? What do we need to revisit? And I think a lot of that stemmed after, once we were settled and back in, we had a lot of separation anxiety with our younger children, lots of emotional literacy, coping with changes. We had some children who, especially our younger children, like, are we going to be back at school on Monday? And we're like, yes, don't worry. Like, that was then and this is now. So using One Decision is sort of a consistent approach has been really beneficial for us.
And, my life as a teacher, it's great to get resources that you can use and that you can plug and play in the classroom the next day. But you also need, I guess you need a kind of a reassurance that you can trust the resources and they'll make a difference. I'll come back to you, Brian, on why you thought one decision was the best choice. But Hayley, could you just talk about some of the kind of, you've got kite marks and logos, and obviously, in terms of publishing safeguarding resources in particular, you've got to go through a quality assurance process. Tell me kind of a little background as to the resources, some of the kind of accolades, awards, kite marks that you have.
So the PSHE Association is our go-to when it comes to quality assuring, and it's been bit of a rough ride over the last decade to make sure that we got everything right and it was age appropriate, because the needs for schools are very, very different. So we wanted to create a scaffolding approach that's kind of in the middle, so that those schools that didn't need so many resources they could reduce, and those that wanted more in-depth resources could add where they felt necessary. So practically everything is kite marked through the PSHE Association, apart from our most recent first aid module.
Yeah.
We went through the Resuscitation Council because we felt they were more suited to kite markers for that particular area. And then beyond that, we've been lucky enough to be finalists and shortlisted in various awards like ERAs, Teach Primary. We recently got the Healthy and Happy 3-star category award for the early years programme, which was really nice. And as you can see there, we're working with the Council of British International Schools, which has started our journey into further afield.
Yeah, I mean,
working in schools like Singapore. Sorry.
I'm lucky I've worked with COBIS. So it's a big international kind of organisation for British teachers or British international schools. So there's a great network for you to go beyond the UK.
Definitely. We're just starting now. I think we're in Singapore, Dubai, Switzerland,
right,
hoping to visit a few.
So the question I've got for you then, particularly for people watching, and again, just a reminder to everyone, please pose your questions in the chat box, and then I can pose them to Brian and Hayley. And what makes your resources different, Hayley, to other PSHE programs? And for people watching outside England, personal, social, health, education is what PSHE stands for. So just want to clarify that. So Hayley, what makes yours different?
So the whole programme is built around a series of videos that have been created with children. My inspiration came from the 1990s, from a film that Gwyneth Paltrow did called Sliding Doors. And being very much a visual learner myself and very kinesthetic, struggled at school in terms of attention. I was the child that was labelled with ADHD and behaviour problems, but actually I was a very, very visual learner, and I did struggle to sit still. So I wanted to create something that engaged children, all children, and particularly as children are now predominantly surrounded by high quality images, it had to be on their level. So we created a series of films. I think we've got over 100 films now. And what's special about them, as you can see in one of the pictures you're showing there, is that each of the videos have a different ending. So we don't tell children they're bad choice makers, but in the endings, they can see a risky choice or a safe choice or a healthy choice, unhealthy choice, and they help the children. So using that distancing technique to be able to get the children to feel empowered to make choices for others whilst they're learning the vocabulary, skills and knowledge for themselves. And it's just about getting them to explore in a safe space before they have to actually make these choices in real life. As adults, I think we make a lot of choices for children, but we want to be sure that they can make these choices when we're not watching.
I don't want to get too technical and kind of pose loads of awkward ad-lib questions, but just technologically as a piece of software to offer lots of different ending scenarios is quite a technical thing to set up. But I guess from a curriculum perspective, that's great for teachers and differentiation, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the children feel really empowered. I will just say, though, on that point, that not all of the videos have alternative endings. As you can imagine, with puberty and conception, they're not made with real life children. So there's lots of animations and documentaries in that are filtered in, but the majority have the alternative endings to allow the children to really visually see what might happen based on a decision they or someone else could make.
So, it's a big topic. And as you've mentioned, there's some tricky topics in there, and I'll come to Brian in a moment in terms of how she uses one decision in her school. But this question here, Hayley, personal development and its responsibility of the school. What's your opinion on schools being forced? It's a statutory thing here in England, maybe not elsewhere, but in the past it was maybe just expectations of parents or carers rather than a statutory thing in school. What has your experience say?
I think only looking at the media we can see that children are not getting everything they need at home. We see sad stories all of the time, and actually the school for me is probably the safest place for many children to learn safely, without those barriers of their parents' opinions and their history of certain different things. And I think it's safe for them to learn with their friends and their peers, and I think schools are best placed to deliver it and to make sure that children are all on the same level, getting the same messages. And then, so just to give you an example, we teach children about texting whilst driving, and I got a question from a teacher saying, well, our children are 10. And I tried to explain, but yes, if we can create that nagging force in the car, actually we can retrain the adults to think better as well. So I do think myself that if we can filter in the curriculum that all children, we can create a completely different generation to come with children thinking on the same level, for sure.
And it's very important. I'm just going to bring Bryony back in and just, get your general thoughts, Bryony, in terms of, obviously you've gone through the setting up issue through COVID. You've had to go on a kind of fast forward pace. And, I've gone through all the kind of glitches and all that type of stuff. But based on that, the personal development being statutory, the provision that you give now in school, I guess my question is, how have you been using it?
So from the beginning, it was all about establishing what did our children already know, and then kind of going from there. What gaps do we have? It took a little while to kind of work it all out, and we just sort of prioritized to start with what is glaringly missing for these children and what do they know a little bit about and can be revisited in the year. And obviously that was a bit much of a start-stop approach because of COVID. And then obviously our Key Stage 2 children were then beginning to leave. So as of this year, we've just started afresh with everything. We've got individual files for all the children now, and I've just kind of stripped it right back to say, this is what we're doing, and we're going to start again. Because I think there's been so many disruptions. We've had new children join, we've had children leave, and I just thought, clean slate. That way I know from point of September that we are now all on the right path of what we need to.
And where's the kind of landline now into, obviously we're still dealing with COVID and pupil and staff absences, but from an RSC curriculum approach to where you were when you started in 2019, how well are you using the resource? What difference are you seeing it make?
I'm definitely seeing, being in a small school in Devon, the diversity that we have down here is quite minimal, I think, compared to schools maybe in London and obviously your city schools. Are things like EAL is very low in comparison. And I think a lot of One Decision is having those diverse characters in their videos, making sure we're respectful to others. And when we do have these children join, it sounds awful saying, but it's not so much as a shock because, like I said, there's not a lot of diversity down where I am, and they're already sort of aware of others. I just think that for our children, we're finding now that there are more aware of others, they are kinder to each other, and we make sure regardless that we're still having our PSHE lessons every week regardless. It doesn't get dropped from the curriculum for something else, it's always timetabled in, and we make it a priority.
And can I just have, technical question for curriculum, but how much time do you protect on a weekly basis for that kind of provision?
So for EYFS, so for our nursery reception classes, they have a small 10-15 minute where they share the One Decision videos with a discussion. This can be enhanced later on through like continuous provision. For Key Stage 1, we have 25 minutes to 30 minutes for our lessons, and for Key Stage 2, they have up to 45 minutes.
Okay, so quite a good chunk of time. Hayley, I'm just putting on these slides here. I wonder if you can just maybe explain some of the resources that are inside some of these graphics. If I just take my banner off so everyone can see the full screen. Hayley, just talk us through these images.
So these graphics have been taken from the puberty and conception, and we've tried to provide a real high quality approach that is not to childish, and it's not too much for our children at year 5 and 6, and it's very scientific. And what it does is it does the job and takes a lot of the onus off the teacher having to worry about sharing the content. It does it for you, and then obviously we've got lots of different opportunities to. We're currently creating so much guidance in the background about teaching teachers about all the different genders, how to support children with SEND, how to make sure that puberty is inclusive. So it's really is the full package. And then obviously we've got a conception that isn't compulsory, but many schools are choosing to use it.
Yeah, and you know, I remember my time teaching PSHE. It's a subject that's very different to anything else in the curriculum. And I guess the kind of question is, I know you've got on a slide here to people to show, is how the assessment side of that works. Could you talk through, people watching,
Of course,
what processes you have in place?
So we have a number of different assessments. So what we have is we have 9 modules per year group, and we suggest that schools choose 3 modules per term to work through at their own pace, because we don't try to fit schools into boxes, because it will be dependent on what the children bring to the classroom in terms of, because with PSHE, most of their information comes from home or in the community. It's whether they've got older siblings, whether they're exposed to certain TV or film and older language. So we do try to create it so it works with the children, regardless whether they've got mixed class groups or mixed abilities. What you can see on here is the students' self-learning journeys, where they can assess their own learning, which has been quite a big focus for Ofsted. But this is just one of the areas. We have knowledge organisers that schools can use and they can refer to. We have baseline and summative for every module, and then that's the beginning and at the end, and then within every single topic there's baseline, formative and summative throughout. We've worked really hard with the PSHE Association to make sure that we're assessing all the crucial points, and most importantly, when they're watching the videos, they're learning so much from each other in terms of sharing their opinions as well.
Now, I'm just going to clarify definitions, because there are people watching outside England. Ofsted is the school inspection service here. And could I, Bryony, can I get you to maybe describe to people who are not familiar with the term knowledge organiser? What is it?
So the way a knowledge organiser works and the way we use them is that each module will have an overview of key vocabulary that's going to be shared. So if they're not sure, they can look back on it. It has key questions, their learning objectives. So that way, if, you know, I covered a year 4 PSHE lesson about a couple months ago, and it was about grief, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I actually printed out a knowledge organiser myself just to refer to, so I know as the teacher, what am I going to be saying that's appropriate, and sticking to that. So I kind of use it as an adult guide as well, to make sure that this is what's been deemed appropriate for these year 4 children.
So it's a good concrete map, your curriculum for, and you can get pupil friendly ones for knowledge organisers too. Is that what you also do?
Yeah, they're all child friendly. What we do for our Key Stage 1 pupils, because obviously with reading, we have this displayed on a display board, and then for our Key Stage 2 children, they all have an individual one in their files in the back, so they can refer to it whenever they need that extra support. And
just going back to your kind of context, Bryony, you mentioned you used you signed up for One Decision at the start of the pandemic. With all the other things that you had to deal with, training online, teaching, that type of stuff, how have you upskilled your teaching staff and your support staff to use One Decision?
I think the first sort of term, as I wasn't leading it, I think we were all kind of trial and error, seeing what was what. And then once I took over, we did, you know, staff questionnaires. Do we like it? What do we like about One Decision? What can we improve on? What don't you feel comfortable with? Is there anything that we can help with? But what we love about One Decision is when you log in and you sign up for it, it's got a how it works page. And in there is so many, I can't even describe to you how many helpful documents. So if my teacher's like, oh, I'm not too sure about this, it's like, have a look at this document. And if you're still not sure, come back to me, because Hayley and her team have covered nearly everything. And it's just been, you know, especially with someone that was quite new, you know, I'd only been maybe 2 years past my NQT year, to take on such a big subject. Even I was like, oh, I'm not too sure.
That is quite a responsibility.
Everything there, and just be like, oh, and now I know it. sometimes I'm like, oh, I know the answer to that now. And that's all down to just Hayley and her team.
Right, so Hayley, I'm going to bring you back in on that compliment. This screen
you,
here, again, I guess it's your opportunity to give us a kind of synopsis of the breadth and depth of the provision that you offer. And just before I bring you in, reminder to everybody watching, leave a comment, post a question, Facebook, YouTube or Twitter, and I'll pose that to Hayley and Bryony as we watch, or hang on the line and we'll take your questions at the end of the session. And don't forget, access to free resources at the end and win an annual subscription. So stay on the line, everyone. So Hayley, question is on this screen, give us an overview of everything that you do based on Bryony's wonderful accolade of your services.
Brilliant. So I've created this map here, and this was created in light of recent conversations in the UK. So for those UK schools might be aware that there was a lot of talk about Ofsted no longer deep diving into PSHE. So for those of you outside the country, Ofsted will come in and assess a particular lesson, and PSHE is often one of those lessons where they will critique everything you do across the school to make sure that it's being delivered correctly. So my big fear for schools on this rumor was that they would stop worrying about delivering it. And I just want to get across to schools that actually, if we have a strong PSHE subject across the school, not only does it help you to cover all of those statutory areas of health and relationships, but then we've got to look at personal development and SMSC that will also feature, again, for those that don't know the acronym, that will be social, moral and spiritual and cultural education, which forms a part of the inspection framework. So without PSHE, we can't necessarily show how this is embedded across the school, because the PSHE is in the classroom. And then we can look at student safeguarding, protected behaviours, British values, protected characteristics. It goes on. An actual solid PSHE program enables you to showcase how you do all of the rest of these things across the school.
So it's in terms of the coverage and the breadth, there's quite a wide. Want to avoid the phrase tick box, but ultimately we're trying to safeguard our children, put them in a good position to go on and be, positive contributors to society. Hayley, let me just show you a couple of more screens, everyone. Hayley, just talk us through these resources here. What are these?
So these are the early years resources. So I spoke quite in depth earlier about the video content. Yeah. Actually, when we go back into early years, we've made it a lot more friendlier for young children, and we've created a set of characters called the Rainbow Drops that are all different colours. They come from different size families and different places, and they explore the world around them. So everything we do at early years is about supporting children into that transition into year one. And again, everything we do at primary is about preparing children for that transition into secondary. And I think, even though they don't call it PSHE at early years, it's called PSED, which is quite similar. Why they wouldn't keep that same acronym to cause less confusion, I don't know.
Acronyms, yeah.
But everything builds on each of the sections that we do. So we'll have a keeping staying safe section in early years and the same in primary. And I think going back to what you were saying a moment ago, Ross, about schools feeling a bit overwhelmed, but actually if we get this part of the curriculum right, a healthy, happy child, it's been shown time and time again, will learn better, will retain information better. So therefore, all of those tick boxes that we have to do in English and maths and SATs, if we can deal with any issues that are causing that child to be behind or less involved, actually they will thrive as students within your school. So I cannot show my passion enough for making sure that PSHE is done well.
Now, for listeners, Hayley and I have known each other for a few years now. I can absolutely reassure you that this is in her blood, and she's very passionate, and it's been built from the ground up, hasn't it, Hayley?
It has. I actually come from secondary. I used to run an alternative provision for disengaged youngsters from the age of 11 to 16. And it was there that I saw that there was an opportunity to reach them earlier before they ended up in provisions like mine. And that's where I really got the fire in my belly for going back.
And you've got an app now, haven't you? Tell us about that.
I have. So Rainbow Smart, actually, going back to how we can get the adults and the parents and carers involved at home to build on our early years and to try and reduce that attainment gap at the moment that we're seeing with COVID. I think children in year 3, 6 and 7 year olds are still yet to have an uninterrupted year at school, and they're kind of nearly halfway through their schooling life, which is crazy to think about. So we created Rainbow Smart through the pandemic, which provides opportunities for parents and carers to work on the same topics that they're working on in early years. We do have a lot of parents and carers using this without their children having it at school, but we're finding that if an early years provision is looking at grief, for instance, so the early story of Purple's pet bird, they can let their parents and carers know, and they can then log into the app, look at the Read to Me book or the animation at home, and try and get those same language and communication conversations happening, kind of linking it all together. There's also mindfulness videos and flashcards, and there's a free 7-day trial for anyone that would like to look at that. We've even got SEN departments in primary using that for some of their children that have missed out on a few bits.
So there's tons of stuff. Bryony, I'm going to bring you back in, I guess. What I'd like to unpick from you is, I know your story is relatively new and you've had COVID, which has got in the way, but where do you see you and your use of One Decision going forward with your children in your school?
I would say that now that we have introduced these individual folders, and now that we can track individual children's journey from year 1 is when we use them from, all the way up to year 6, we're just creating happy children who are respectful of others and just have a better understanding of the outside world. Part of me always felt, being in a private school, a lot of our children can be very sheltered. There's a lot of things that may not be aware of, and I think it's really good that they kind of are aware of this now before they head off into secondary. So all the things we're doing is kind of giving those building blocks before they head off, because most of our children head into secondary state schools, into the grammar schools. And again, it kind of gives them those foundations ready for their teenage years with things like online safety, bullying, and even things like first aid, which is now statutory, and how important that is. So they've got a bit of an awareness of that as well.
So I've got a question here. So it sounds like you've got a good, clear path, and I think your curriculum structure and your knowledge organisers are all those great tools that help support that implementation. Hayley, I've got a question here from Samantha, who's watching on our live Facebook stream. Thank you, Samantha. Do you have any SEND schools? So people watching elsewhere, SEND, special educational needs and disabilities. Hayley.
Yes. Hi, Samantha. Thank you for your question. We do. We have quite a few, and we have some special educational behaviour schools as well. We even have a handful of secondary SEND schools that adapt our resources to their cohort because of the mental age of their children they're working with. And we've been talking to quite a few about taking away some of the animation and refilming with older children, but using the same scripts. Because it's pitched at the right level, but we obviously use younger children in the video. So it's one of my areas I really want to get into next is looking at how we can adapt that even further, looking at subtitles as well for deaf children and all sorts of plans, but funding holds us back.
So there's huge potential, and my work with schools and teachers around the world, in terms of, and I don't know how this will resonate with Bryony or your insights, Hayley, but all teachers tell me that they struggle in terms of confidence managing pupils' mental health, and particularly addressing SEN in the classroom. Does that ring a bell for you, Bryony, in terms of the people around you, that's the thing that teachers lack confidence the most?
Yeah, I think mental health has been such a huge thing, especially since COVID. One of the things that we have done to support our children, especially in our infant children, our reception year 1, year 2 children, is we've introduced calm corners. So they have a corner of the classroom. They have one of our DD dolls in there as well, so it's something familiar to them.
Just for people watching elsewhere, just explain what a DD doll is.
Yes, so what Hayley has done at One Decision, when the resources are broken down, you have resources 5 to 8, so year 1, year 2, year 3, their little character. So here in the EYFS, we have the rainbow drops, we have a little mascot called Dee Dee, and then for the 8 to 11-year-olds, they have an older mascot called Darlie. They don't have the older mascots in their classrooms, but we have the younger ones. So it's just like, it's something familiar.
Yeah,
for them.
okay. And I'll bring Hayley back in to explain, how the mascot stories evolved. Thank you, Brian.
Charlie down there, actually, just behind Hayley.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, she's on the other shoulder. Yeah,
I
right
can't
shoulder.
There's Dee Dee and Darlie down there. So Dee Dee was a decision maker, and that's what we put the program around. And then it became Darlie. She was a bit more hip for the older characters. And then we produced Dinky and Dooley, who were the alien that came into Earth in a lot of our animations. And then the Rainbow Drops. So it was Dee Dee and the Rainbow Drops. So you're just trying to bring in a bit of fun, a bit of animation to some serious topics, but make it slightly light-hearted and help children to feel more comfortable when they're looking at these areas of their lives.
Right. So thank you for that clarification. So there you go, folks. I'm going to slowly start to wrap things up. This is your chance now to leave a comment on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and I'll pose the question to Brian and Hayley in a moment. I'm about to, drum roll, offer an annual subscription, and also Hayley's going to talk about the free resources that you can all access watching live or watching this recorded. And I'm going to pose a question to Hayley to kind of sum up 3 ways, because that's what was on the title. 3 ways that one decision can help your students and your school support children's mental health and relationships education. But before I do, I'm going to bring the ladies back in. I'm just going to pose a few questions in a moment. But here is the prize question. So let me, and I'm going to keep it easy. Maybe I should make it hard, but I want someone to actually win this annual subscription. So in keeping with retrieval practice and quizzing and developing memory, and I've done it myself tonight, I want you to tell me what part of Devon Bryony works in. Is it north, east, south or west Devon? And this is only for people watching live. So you need to leave a comment in the chat box in order to win an annual subscription for your school. And Hayley can describe what that includes, its value and all those types of things. And you've only got 5 minutes to pose a question, and we'll probably choose somebody at random. So there is your chance to win an annual subscription. So answers, please, as quick as you can. I can already see 1 or 2 coming in the chat box. So let me take the screen off. I'm going to bring Hayley and Bryony back in. And I'm just going to put some comments on here. Here's our first comment. I work for an online school. Would your resources be suitable to use over Zoom? So, Bryony, let's start with you. You've probably done this. What do you think?
Yes, I have. Yes, absolutely. So part of it, we actually used seesaw learning in the beginning. And then when the second lockdown happened, we had online Zoom lessons. So all we did was share our screen. It actually worked better doing it live because then we were able to share the videos because we didn't want to give our parents the login details that we had for one decision. I don't know about Canvas, but Zoom, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Can I
yeah, of course, Hayley.
Am I okay? No, so we did a lot of work during the lockdown to make sure that the lessons were available so that teachers could access them really easily. But we did have to spend quite a bit of time filtering through what we thought was appropriate to be delivered at home, because obviously some of the subjects do touch on things that might be affecting children at home. So we did have to filter through, and I think about 40% was suggested for use at home, but I wouldn't suggest that every single element was home learning, because often it can bring children into conversations that are uncomfortable for them if they're at home. Does that make sense?
It does. I've got another question here from Samantha. I'll start with you, Hayley. I haven't used your resources before. They sound great. Secondary school, I'm thinking about students of mine. Do you have plans to cover the secondary curriculum too?
We do. Before we went back into early years, that was our primary focus, but it's a lot of funding to get us where we need to be to cover everything that needs to be covered, and it's certainly in our plans. But when COVID happened, we felt that there was a bigger need at early years, so we actually went backwards. But I'd like to think that in the very near future, we'll be doing things. We've got some great plans. We've actually got a feature-length film that we want to put forward as a part of the English curriculum, which is all about decision making and is broken up. So hopefully we'll have some news on that in the very near future.
Thank you, Hayley. And Bryony, can I guess one more key question? You've only been using the free resources, is that correct?
No, we have all the resources now.
Okay. But did you start with the free materials first before you kind of dipped in?
We had a little look to kind of see what it was like before we decided to buy into a full subscription and just see how the children responded to them. And we've had great feedback. I mean, the children get so excited. Sometimes when we have RE, they're like, oh, we're watching a video. I'm like, no, this is PSHE, not RE, and things like that. So they find it really engaging. And I feel like, you know, the way the world is now with technology and videos, children watch videos all the time with, you know, all the Disney Plus that they get and the YouTube. And actually, I find now that when they get to watch the videos, they're fully engrossed, they're engaged with the resources, and it works really well for them.
So there you go. So you know, it's try before you buy, isn't it? And particularly in schools when budgets are short, we need resources that are going to make a big difference. Hayley, just responding to that comment from Samantha about SEN secondary school.
We've got a lot of secondary SEN ND schools, Samantha, and I would welcome a conversation if you'd like to drop me a line. And I believe that the Key Stage 2 programme is being used more in the secondary SNDs, and they can be adapted quite easily. So more than happy to let you have a look and see if that's something that could support your provision for sure.
Right. Now I've got one more question before I give everyone the link to the free first aid resources. In terms of parental engagement, a question from LB. Do you have any resources to support conversations at home?
Just today, we have just completed our puberty pack guide for parents. That's got a full book list, and it's got lots of information on how to start those conversations. And obviously, we support the schools in engaging with the parents before they even deliver those lessons as well. So there's lots of resources there.
And on the note of resources,
sorry,
Hayley, could you tell us a little bit more about how everybody watching can get these free first aid lessons to use in their classrooms tomorrow?
Yeah, so we're really excited about the first aid because we didn't film for so long, and it was our first module back, and we literally just completed it in December. So this is recommended for years 4, 5 and 6, and again probably suitable for years 7 and 8 as well, especially if they've not done it before. And what this entails is 4 separate lessons that really hones in on all of those key skills a young person would need to help someone in a first aid situation. But there's lots of videos different to the primary stuff because there is alternative endings, but we've got a bit of a twist. So I'll give you an example. There's a video of someone that can't breathe, and in that particular video there's 2 endings, one where they're having an anaphylactic shock and one where it's asthma. And it's a real visual way of getting children to remember those steps to take if they do come across someone that needs support, and that is available to everybody.
So there you go, everyone. What's not to like? Loads of free resources. So let me just put the link up there. So onedecision.co.uk. Take a look, grab those resources. I'll circulate for people that have signed up to the ticket all these links and this recording so you can share this with colleagues in your school. Right, we're going to come to prize time now. So I'm about to announce a very tricky question. An annual subscription. So Hayley, before Bryony gives us the answer and I choose a winner for someone watching live, what's included in an annual subscription? How many licenses? What does it cost? All those kind of questions that a school leader would have.
So an interactive subscription will just allow online access to everything for years 1 to 6. It will cover everything under the expectations for PSHE in line with the core themes that the PSHE Association have laid out. It also covers all of the areas for health and relationships education, which are now statutory. We've got assembly packs. Just this week alone, we have created a mental health pack and lots of resources for Safer Internet Day that was today, which will still be accessed if anyone is interested. And we also have support from me and showcasing how to embed that into your school, so I will add that on as a free charge.
What kind of training is offered on, and obviously there's that online support, but is that obviously COVID, the physical training might have taken a back foot, but what kind of support do you offer schools, Hayley, that in that context?
In the portal we have an ask a question, and within there teachers can access that at any point, and our team are always on hand, and we have yet to fail to respond within 24 hours. So hopefully we don't get too busy.
Not bad going.
but that's what we.
So there you go. Right. So Bryony, I want you to think of Britain's Got Talent here. A bit of suspension before you reveal the answer. But earlier in the session, I asked Bryony where she worked. I forgot. I checked again, and then I posed it as a competition. And I wanted to know which part of Devon does Bryony work in? Is it north, south, east, or west Devon? So Bryony, with a little bit of a suspension, could we have what particular part of Devon are you teaching in?
I teach in the south of Devon.
So there you go. And what a lovely place it is. Now, I've got a few responses in here, but not many correct answers. But I'm going to reveal on the screen someone who's been quite engaged with us. So thank you. And the winner is Samantha. So congratulations, Samantha. So if you email me, Samantha, or directly to Hayley through the website, I think the best thing to do is to come to me. So just for this video recording, if you email me on support@teachertoolkit.co.uk, I'll connect you with Hayley, and you can start using these fabulous resources as soon as possible. Right, so we're going to wrap things up. So I'll just take this off the screen, trying to manage two screens here and all these slides. I guess my last question to you all, in fact, I'm not going to do that in terms of technology. Let's just keep it as a talking heads. You've got a great resource there. I know in my career teaching PSHE, a very broad curriculum, and having lots of embarrassing moments or things that I wasn't confident with the plethora of resources and great kind of tools such as One Decision. I guess Bryony can back me up here. You've got a great bank of resources that can give you that confidence in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with all them teacher notes as well. So even if I know, I know how it works differently in other schools, but sometimes your PSHE might be delivered by an HLTA or a TA while teachers have PPA time. And I feel like that was quite a big thing in lots of schools, that their PSHE was being delivered, maybe not always their teacher, but sometimes a supplier or a cover teacher. And I think what One Decision does is, because they have the teacher notes at the beginning, you could give it to anyone and they would still be delivering exactly how you would be delivering if you're kind of following it. So if you're not confident, especially, I know things like puberty and conception can be quite big, overwhelming topics for people, not too sure what's the right thing to say, the wrong things to say. Have your teacher notes there, and it's all kind of there for you. So hopefully you don't slip up with anything.
So no more awkward moments in the classroom. We've all been there. We managed to get through this session without saying any rude words in the sex education lesson. So we've done very well for 7 o'clock at night. So
one thing we didn't mention, Ross, is that within the package you've got the full lesson plans to load as well. So we've created them in image form so that it's not going to be a PowerPoint that doesn't fit right on your screen. We've created it so you can just load and follow the notes and go. So it's just really reducing that teacher planning time as well.
Teacher workload, so perfect. So what's not to like? Brian, in 3 words, could you sum up what difference One Decision is making to your kids?
I would say we have, it's not really words, are they? We have happier children. We have children who definitely know what PSHE is now. Before, you'd ask what PSHE is and they wouldn't be too ropey on that one. And I would say we have children who are more aware of themselves in terms of, their mental health, their physical health. You could ask them something and they'd be able to give you an answer about it.
There you go. And Hayley, obviously it's your baby, but give us those 3 words that you think make a difference to our teachers and our children in school.
So for me, it was 3 reasons, if that's okay. Three ways that we could support relationships education and mental health. So it's providing that strong PSHE, going back to that mind map, helping you cover all of those different areas of safeguarding and personal development right at the beginning that we spoke about then. The second thing is extra support with your parents and carers. I think it has to be, it can't just be left on the school to take some of that pressure off us. We're trying to give schools more stuff to send back, like helping your child with anxiety or supporting your child with puberty, lots of packs to send back with parents. And now we're doing regular assemblies. So it's not just those one-off lessons on a particular topic. We're trying to filter in lots of assemblies along the way as well to keep those, like, teaching the times tables. We want children to keep having the same messages so that we can embed that learning even more. So they're the 3 ways.
So there you go, folks. So I'm going to kind of formally end the recording here. We're just going to have a little bit of a chat now. So that's when most people still want to stay on the line. But I'm going to kind of end formal proceedings. You can kind of see from the pictures, and you can also hear from Bryony the difference that it's making to our teachers, the colleagues, and also the children in their school. You've got the link to the free resources, the first aid module. There's the new app, and congratulations to Samantha again for that correct answer. Let's just reveal her excitement. That's not bad for a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, getting a free subscription. So here's your last call, folks, for any comments in the chat box connected to the channels that you're watching. So I'll give you a moment to add anything there. Last chance to quiz Hayley and Bryony's brains. While I'm waiting for your comments, Hayley, thank you. It's been lovely to work with you again.
Thank you for having us.
And a great resource. And I know you've been incredibly busy and your growth has been exponential, particularly through the lockdown, hasn't it?
Yes, it certainly has. I think I need a holiday.
And
sure.
Bryony, on the front line, going through COVID, particularly as an early careers teacher, can I just say thank you on behalf of all the people I work with, for working on the front line, keeping our schools open and helping our children. You're doing a fabulous job.
And thank you for all the kind words, Bryony.
And you're so welcome.
Really, really appreciate it.
So
£100 later.
Yeah, well, there you go. So we've got a few comments here. I'm not going to go through them all, but thank you to everybody for watching. Well done to Samantha for winning that subscription. Just a quick reminder, support@teachertoolkit.co.uk, and I'll connect you with Hayley. This video will be shared on my YouTube channel. I'll circulate all the resources and hyperlinks to people that have signed up. And thank you very much for watching. I wish you all the best. Keep safe. Keep up the great work that you're doing in your schools, and please check out onedecision.co.uk to download all these fabulous resources and access the free material at least. And I'll see you again in a future webinar. So thank you for watching.